All right, so Jim Jones. Shout out to Jim Jones, man. Jim Jones has been all in the media, all in the press. You've been seeing him for the past few days, past week actually, right? So I have a question. I know Jim Jones was on the Jada Kiss and Fat Joe podcast, and the whole Nas situation came up. He said that he was better than Nas, had more entries, Billboard entries than Nas, which all was debunked. Then he appeared on Shannon Sharp, and him and Shannon Sharp got into it on the Nightcap show. So the whole thing is this: is Jim Jones wrong for having confidence in himself? Is Jim Jones wrong for having confidence in himself? Now, the reason I'm asking that is because, Jim Jones, when he went on I was about to say Bill, but when he went on the Jadakiss and Fat Joe's show, he was basically saying, look, I'm more influential than Nas in 2025, or the last few years. I've been more influential than Nas. And then he said, check the Billboard, who got the biggest, the most entries and stuff like that. Now, Jim was smoking on something. He had to have been high when he said that, but he appeared on Shannon Sharp's show, the Nightcap with Ocho Cinco, and he said, okay, maybe I was, being goofy with the Billboard entries because that was cap. Like, come on, Nas has way more hits than Jim Jones. To be real, come on, man. And I love Jim Jones. I love Dipset. If you are a subscriber to this channel, you know how much I love those guys. I bought Jim Jones' first album, his first 3 albums actually, back when before Ballin' and all the other stuff came out. So the thing is he wrong for having the confidence in himself to say that in 2025 he's better than Nas? Is he wrong to say he was influential? You know what I'm saying? Now it's real funny because him and Shannon Sharp are going back and forth, and I played like a little clip of it just in case you've been hiding under a rock. So Shannon actually just said straight up, like, you're not better than Nas. You tripping.
I can sing more Nas records than you right now.
So this is fair use, by the way. Fair use. Watch this.
So you are capping. You are capping. That's what you're doing.
First of all, bro,
you are capping. I'm a bigger Nas fan than you are. You are capping.
First of all, I'm 57. I don't be singing no rap. I don't be singing no rap.
You see what I'm saying, Ocho? He don't even know about rap. He just doing this for the views to get Jim Jones on there to get him hot.
All right. So he's saying that, Shannon Sharp was strategically trying to say he don't know, the Nas records and stuff like that. It's like he don't know Nas records, but he just wanted to jump at Jim just to get some clout views and all this other stuff. So if he's trying to get some views, Jim, what do you call what you're doing? But anyway, let's keep watching.
I understand, but you don't know him hot. You don't know Nas.
You better check the podcast space. Now you better talk.
Sing 16.
Hey, this is the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This is the biggest podcast you ever been on. You know the podcast you been on better than this one.
So anyway, I ain't gonna play all that. But after this, they got into it some more, and then somehow they ended up talking about going to the gym, right? Somehow they ended up talking about going to the gym and all this other stuff, and like literally. And Jim Jones said he can outdo Shannon Sharp in the gym. And this is Jim Jones actually in the gym showing off his skills. And Jim Jones does work out. He does work out like crazy. So look at Jim.
Hey, yo, Shannon, did you work out today? You talking all that shit.
First of all, look at Jim must not do leg work. His legs are skinny as hell. Goodness gracious.
The weekends, I do warrior sets. These pull-ups with resistant bands, bro. Can you even lift your own body weight? We can all lift a bunch of weight. But can you lift your own body weight, big fella? The world wants to know. When you want to meet us in the gym? Huh? That's what the world wants to know.
The world doesn't want to know that, Jim. But anyway, shout out to Jim Jones. But like, he is a faithful person that works out. I see it all the time. He's been doing it for the last like 10 years for real. But this is the thing, man. You're supposed to, of course. All right, let's just address this. Jim Jones is not a better rapper than Nas. Jim Jones doesn't have a good catalog like Nas does. Jim Jones doesn't even have as many albums as Nas does, from my understanding. Jim Jones doesn't have as many hit records as Nas. Jim Jones doesn't have as many classic records as Nas. Jim Jones doesn't have a classic albums like Nas. Okay. Jim Jones is not more influential than Nas. Now, Jim Jones is definitely influential. Don't get it twisted. Dipset, Jim Jones, that was his brain power behind that. Cam and Cameron was influential, but Jim Jones and Santana, they actually were the ones rocking the Skull and Bones and the rock star stuff before everybody else did. The way their drip was and how flashy they were, that's Jim Jones. Dipset was kind of his brainchild. So you got to give him respect to that. And it did influence the youth. Now, style-wise, yeah, I would say in 2025, I got Jim Jones, which is Dipset over Nas. But if you talk about impact, Illmatic alone, like Jim Jones is like, oh, kids don't listen to Nas and all this other stuff. I guarantee you there are probably more kids that know who Nas is over Jim Jones, just because Nas is just cemented. And like if you Google Jim Jones right now, right, the rapper may not even show up. They might be talking about the mob boss, or wasn't he a mob boss or something like that? But if you Google Nas is gonna pop up. So just off GP, like you have to be specific on which Jim Jones you're talking about. And I'm not trying to take away from Capo, but Nas is cemented in the game. Jim Jones is cemented too, but not nearly as big as a Nas. And then, Jim Jones, but to play devil's advocate, it's nothing wrong because Jim Jones does put in work. He puts out dope bodies of work. Can't take that away from him. But even his dope bodies of work aren't as good as Nas's bodies of work. Nas's last 6 albums he made with Hit Boy have been dope as hell. Two of them I feel like are classic albums, in my personal opinion. King's Disease 1 and King's Disease 3. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with Jim Jones having confidence in himself. I just think that he needs to really be paying attention to how he says things, because you say ignorant things like you have more Billboard entries than Nas. Little kids don't know who Nas is or all that. And I'm like, Jim Jones, do kids know who you are? And he be like, they call him the oldest YN they know. And he's like, because I connect to the youth. I connect to the youth. What YNs are riding around listening to Jim Jones? I'm not saying they're listening to Nas either, but what YNs are riding around listening to Jim Jones? He just put out a project, was it a few months ago? And it sounded good. Production was good. But how much did it sell? I don't know any YNs or younger kids that know who Jim Jones is. And the fact that he looks like he dresses young and all this other stuff, maybe in New York they do, but it's like Jim Jones he's getting ahead of himself. He's getting ahead of himself. You know what I'm saying? I think that Jim Jones doesn't really read the room when he goes on these podcasts, and he just gets in his feelings, and just because he is an emotional guy, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'll be putting out dope projects. I can go bar for bar with Nas, whatever like that. It's okay to think that and have the confidence. But part of me feels like Jim does this for attention. I think that he's strategic when he does this, or maybe, maybe not. Maybe he has, just he's in the moment when he's on these podcasts and stuff just ends up going viral, because that happens with me all the time. Like me and CJ, when we do our podcast, Who Gave You a Podcast, which is you can go to YouTube right now and check it out. But a lot of the times when we're just talking, shooting the shit, stuff just happens, and we'll put something out and then it ends up going viral, and we're having a normal conversation and we didn't even plan that. But yeah, I like Jim Jones. I really do love him as an artist, but I think he gets ahead of himself and he doesn't think before he speaks and thinks with these emotions more so. But there's nothing wrong with him saying, hey man, shit, I can go bar for bar with Nas in 2025. Because I mean, he does have a catalog to back it up when you're talking about consistency, good production, good lyricism. But lyrically, he ain't touching Nas. And I go listen to a Nas album in 2025 before a Jim Jones album. I'm gonna just keep it a buck. But Jim, like you're trying to play Nas, like the youth doesn't know who he is. Even if they don't listen to his records, they know who Nas is. Come on, man. They see these top 10, top 5 lists and stuff. They know who Nas is. They know Ether. They do know that. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to be a deep rap fan to even know that. So I feel like he was trying to kind of play Nas, but I'm just like, Jim Jones, what are your records that the youth will know besides We Fly High? You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the hit records that Jim Jones has. We Fly High, maybe Pop Champagne. I give that to him because that was a hit record. So, you know, for shits and giggles, let's give him that. Pop Champagne with Ron's Browns, right? After that, what else? Certified Gangsters wasn't really a hit record. I know it was a big record in New York, but I don't know about everywhere else. But what other songs does Jim Jones have besides those 3 records that I just named right there? Versus a kid probably didn't heard Ether before. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I don't know. I think Jim's tripping. A kid knows If I Rule the World. That's a very popular song. Jim don't have a record besides Ballin', We Fly High that even matches a lot of those songs that Nas has done. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, shout out to Jimmy. Shout out to him. But I think he gets ahead of himself a lot. But yeah, I don't know what YNs are riding around listening to Jim Jones. Not saying they listen to Nas either, but they do know who Nas is. But anyway, man, shout out to Jim Jones, man. I hope he gets it together. But I think if he is trolling, he knows how to troll and get attention because he's getting everybody talking and he stays in the limelight and he does go to the gym. Shout out to Jim Jones. But anyway, man, y'all let me know what you think in the comment section. Make sure that you subscribe to youtube.com/ResView. Follow me on all social media platforms at JAYR3D and on TikTok at the JAYR3D. But anyway, man, that's been my time. See you on the next episode. ResView.